Trump's debate strategy, a suggestion.
Mr. Reagan.
All right, now I don't usually do this, but I'm going to cut to the chase here. Here is the strategy. Let Biden hang himself. Well, that's it for me. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. No, I'm kidding. Of course, we're going to get into it, dissect the logic of this tactic. But before we get into it, I wanted to remind everybody to sign up for unwoke.hr. 2 Christian ladies were recently fired from Kroger Supermarket from jobs they had had for decades because they didn't want to wear uniforms with LGBTQ symbols on them. If you need a job and you don't want to get fired for just being a conservative or a Christian, or you own a business, you don't want to hire woke, blue-haired SJW snowflakes, just hard-working employees who want to infect your company with neo-Marxist identity, politics, and sanity, sign up with unwoke.hr. Not to be confused with woke.hr, which... wouldn't that be a hilarious company? Do you want your company destroyed by virtue-signaling gender studies graduates? Go to woke.hr. Honestly, most HR companies are woke, and that's why we need to make Unwoke the biggest HR website, whatever you want to call it, in the world. Let's do it, guys. All right, now let's get back into this. So it's pretty obvious that Biden is cognitively compromised. And we know that leftist media has been feeding him answers to their questions and lobbing softballs in literally every interview that he has done. So do we really think that the debates are going to be any different? Of course not. I'm not even sure that Chris Wallace is going to play rough. Now, if we got Bret Baier in there, we might get something like this.
Has Joe Biden ever used a teleprompter during local interviews or to answer Q&A with supporters?
Bret, we are not going to engage. This is straight from the Trump campaign's talking
they're
points.
using it.
And what it does, Bret, is it's trying to distract the American people.
They're using it. They talk about it every day. Can you say yes or no?
That's because they talk about it every day, Bret, because they don't have a coherent
Well, you have an answer. Yes or no?
Bret, they talk about it every day because they don't have a coherent argument for why Donald Trump deserves re-election, deserves 4 more years. They can against the wall to try to distract from that fact.
I understand, but you can't answer the question.
Bret, I am not going to allow the Trump campaign to funnel their questions through Fox News and get me to respond to that.
Well, TJ, we appreciate your time and thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Bret.
That was beautiful. And granted, that wasn't a policy question, but it was a tough question. Questions about Hunter will be absent from the debates, I'm sure. News just came out about $3.5 million paid to Hunter from the wife of a Russian oligarch. Will we hear anything about that in the first debate? Not a chance. Questions about Ukraine won't be asked. Questions about China won't be asked. So here's my strategy. And this is actually from my dad, so I can't take credit. So you can thank my father for this, Trump team. All right, here it is. Have Donald Trump himself ask Biden questions. Think about it. Donald Trump has a certain amount of time to answer each question from the moderator. Quickly answer the question and then pivot and throw a tough question at Joe Biden. Then watch him flail about, unable to answer the question. They won't be the softball questions he's used to. He won't have scripted answers. It'll completely throw him off, and it'll give the nation an opportunity to see Biden for the first time under real stress, a stress test. And just watch Biden utterly fall apart under the pressure. Now, I am not a proponent of elder abuse, but at this point, I think it's better to just take the kill shot and move on. Put the animal out of its misery. This is a metaphor, of course, YouTube. I don't actually think Donald Trump should murder Joe Biden on stage. I mean, we're Republicans, right? We're not Black Lives Matter peaceful protesters. Now, obviously, Donald Trump can't do this the entire time. He has to answer some questions. We need there to be a clear distinction between Trump's brilliance and wit versus Joe Biden's incoherent ramblings. Now, Trump is also guilty sometimes of ineloquence. He talks like a normal guy having a normal conversation, and the press has really attacked him for this. He weaves and bobs. He expresses one idea, then switches suddenly to something completely unrelated, maybe throws in some sound effects and physical gestures, and then maybe he even brings in a third or fourth topic. But that's the beautiful thing about how Trump expresses an idea, is that after that confusing, labyrinthine knot of ideas, he always brings it back to his initial thought. He always gets back to the point. I don't always do that. Even in my 20s, I could sometimes steer my thoughts way off course, and I'd have to turn to whomever I was speaking with and say, what the hell was I talking about? And I do the same thing today. But Trump doesn't. He always brings it back. And to me, I think that he actually needs to be commended for that. But let's be real. The press will never commend him for this or for anything. So I don't think Trump is going to get a break from the media if he goes on his typical stream of consciousness style exposition. Instead, he needs to focus on 3 points: brevity, clarity, and pivot to Biden. That's the strategy. And you might be saying, well, will there even be a debate? I think there will be. A lot of people think that Biden will back out, that he'll claim that he's caught coronavirus or make up some other excuse. I don't think so. Other theories suppose that Joe Biden will be injected with some stimulants to keep him lucid throughout the debate. Now, that might happen. There's not much we can do about that. But even so, I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with Trump, even if he is pumped up with stimulants. Do you remember Trump's debates in 2016? He was savage.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
So you know what? Give Joe Biden his injections. Just get Trump a cup of coffee and watch him obliterate Biden on the stage. Now here's the thing, Biden can't use a teleprompter during the debates. So some believe that he's going to be receiving prompts through an earpiece. They think he'll be fed answers to questions by his team throughout the debate. Somebody posted a picture of an earpiece that they think Biden was wearing on Twitter, and they said, check Biden's ears before the debate. And you know what? Maybe he will be wearing an earpiece. I don't know. But if so, great. You know what? Get a radio receiver, set it up to receive the signal, record it, and release it to the public. I would love to watch the debate overlaid with the audio track of Biden's handlers feeding him answers to questions. That would be devastating to his campaign. So I think that it's actually fairly unlikely that Joe Biden's team will employ such a strategy. But if Biden is teleprompter free, and earpiece free, and he just has to rely on his own cognitively compromised brain, his only hope will be charitable treatment by the moderators. And I think we can count on that. So Trump can't let that happen. Trump has to come up with his own questions. Okay, let's look at some of the questions that Joe Biden should be asked. I used a recent article by The Federalist as the basis for this list. First question, why was Burisma paying your son Hunter Biden? What did he do for them? You know what? There are actually a lot of questions about Biden's corruption that can be asked, too many to get into here. I'll refer you to my other videos on the subject. Next question. If you become president, how will you enforce your national mask mandate? Are people going to be required to wear masks at the point of a gun? Next question. If president, will you investigate Cuomo for forcing COVID patients into nursing homes, killing thousands of people? Next question. Explain what you would have done differently with your COVID response, because he was asked this once by a reporter, and everything that he said was things that Trump actually did. There's a great video about this on the channel Run, Don't Walk. It's great. So if Joe Biden starts listing things that Trump actually did again, then Trump can just inject, after every point he makes, did that, did that, did that. It would be hilarious. Next question. Do you ever use a teleprompter to answer questions from reporters or in a Q&A session with voters? Next question. Will your administration stop YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Google, and other social media companies from censoring conservative political speech? Next question. Why is Kamala Harris and her staff bailing out rioters and encouraging others to do so? These rioters have shot police, murdered Trump supporters, committed sexual assault, committed arson. They've tried to blind law enforcement with lasers. These people are violent criminals. How is paying the bail of these rioters a good thing? Next question. Is Antifa a domestic terrorist organization? Next question. Are you aware that Black Lives Matter is an openly Marxist movement, one of the stated goals of which is to disrupt the nuclear family structure? With that in mind, do you support the Marxist Black Lives Matter movement? Next question. Would you send the National Guard into Portland to stop the rioting and violence caused by Black Lives Matter and Antifa? Next question. What would you do to reduce the crime epidemic in Chicago and other Democrat-run cities? Next question. How will you stop China's flagrant intellectual property theft? Next question. How will you end China's horrible human rights abuses? Next question. You have supported China's one-child policy. Should we also regulate the number of children American parents have? How is this okay? Next question. You want to ban AR-15s. How familiar are you with the gun? Have you ever actually fired one? Next question. How would you take people's guns away? If people resist, will you kill them? Next question. How safe must America America be from coronavirus before kids can go back to school? What's your metric, and what are the key numbers that we need to see? Next question. You say you want to tax the wealthy, but the top 10% taxed at 100% of their income will be able to fund the federal government for exactly 1 year at current federal spending numbers. How would you increase federal spending tens of trillions of dollars as you plan without either enslaving rich people or raising taxes on literally everyone? Next question. Will you ban energy from coal? Will you ban fracking? What will you ban in order to combat the dreaded climate change? Now, this is a tough one because he has to appease climate change radicals and blue-collar folks. Puts him in a difficult spot. Next question. Why did you do nothing to stop the illegal surveillance of Donald Trump's campaign back when you were vice president, when all this stuff was going on? Next question. What is your plan to prosecute the corruption in the FBI, CIA, and DOJ in their attempt to frame a Republican presidential candidate for treason and for the subsequent coup afterwards? Next question. Is Bill de Blasio a good mayor? Is Ted Wheeler a good mayor? Is Lori Lightfoot a good mayor? Next question. Is the United States fundamentally racist? Is it systemically racist? Why? How? Explain. Next question. What should be the criteria for U.S. citizenship? Personally, I think you need to be hot. Only hot people allowed in. I'm joking. Obviously, kind of. Now, in the next debate, if Trump takes his time not just to answer the questions leveled at him, but also sometimes to pivot to Biden and ask him any of these questions, Biden will flounder and fall flat on his face. He will stumble and bumble his way through incoherent answers, and Americans will see clearly who they have nominated as the Democrat nominee for president. My advice, let Biden hang himself. Now, whether or not Trump's people apply this strategy, I do think the debate will expose Biden's cognitive frailty. We will certainly see a contrast between a lucid, witty leader, Trump, and a mentally incompetent career politician whose time is up.
My time's up.
All right, well, that's it for me. Now, go sign up at unwoke.hr. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
I am eternally optimistic, and I happen to believe that we've made great progress from the days when I was young and when this country didn't even know it had a racial problem. I know those things can grow out of despair in an inner city, when there's hopelessness at home, lack of work and so forth.